Hi, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Unlaced podcast, one that I've been waiting to do for a long time. We finally got the dates and times sorted with the guys from Concave Football, Andrew Theoklitos, Michael Peterson. It's an absolute pleasure to have you both in here.
Thank you. First and foremost, thanks for inviting us in to tell our story. I suppose, how do we condense a 20-year journey into 1 hour, Jake?
Mate, there's a lot to talk about, and I do want to give a bit of background to, I guess, the listeners just on, I guess, some of your roles across the company and the brand and just the history of how we know each other to go into. But Michael Peterson is football royalty, like
Absolutely.
just football royalty in this country. Football Federation Australia Hall of Fame. I didn't actually know that, Mickey, but You've played for the Socceroos over 30 times. You've won multiple NSL championships for South Melbourne as a player and coach. And the only Australian player to ever be signed by Johan Cruyff. And for those that don't know who Johan Cruyff is, he is the man that created the mantra and the philosophy for Barcelona. So, Mickey is a founder of the Concave brand along with Andy and is overseeing the boot function of the brand. So, Mickey, awesome to have you here, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Jakey. Like Andrew, thanks for having us and looking forward to the podcast.
No worries. And Andy, you being a director and a co-founder of the brand, mate, it's a pretty special space that you guys are in, and I'm very inspired by you two. And every time I have combos with you, I fucking always get G'd up, man. Like every time I get on the phone to Mickey, I'm ready to run through a wall. And then speaking to Andy, I'm like, you guys are just electric with what you're doing because you're just going hard at everything you do. But for just all the listeners who aren't aware of Concave, are you able to just provide a bit of background on how it all started? Where it came
absolutely. I think probably just one thing I definitely want to mention. Obviously, Michael Peterson and myself are founders. There's three of us that founded the company. Andrew Neofitu can't be here today. He's also one of the founders.
Awesome.
I just wanted to acknowledge him as well.
Shout out, Andrew. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. So basically, Concave, we're a disruptive football boot brand that's pretty much made up of a bunch of misfits, people who challenge the status quo and predominantly practice going against the grain. Like we just challenge it pretty much everything. And it's probably fair to say that's the DNA and essence of our brand. So in effect, we own disruptive technology, intellectual property that assists you when you strike a ball, when you kick a football, any type of code, football, AFL, obviously global football, league, etc. And we've had our technology independently tested by two different universities, Deakin University and Monash University, to validate that our technology works and it's real.
Right.
So that's the essence of how we're founded, as in what we're founded for and why we're doing what we're doing.
Wow.
Because ultimately it's something that's very real.
It's real and essentially it creates a bigger sweet spot through plastics technology on the top of the foot. It's basically 3 millimeters of plastic or railing that runs down the instep of the foot. It's a simple idea, but as the time frames will show, Jakey, it's taken a long time to commercialise it and even perfect it.
Yeah. So was that sort of the technology and that idea came first before you started the brand, or did you guys just get around a table and think, let's create the sort of football brand that we're in now?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, credit must go to the inventor, Alan Durand, a football, one-eyed Collingwood Magpie supporter, Victoria Park.
Okay.
He watches his beloved Collingwood go down to, I think it was North Melbourne at the time. Severio Rocker, 6 straight behinds. He basically missed the goal on 6 occasions.
He's a big kick, Sav Rocker, too.
It was a big kick, but who would have known that the Concave journey would be born from the missed kicking of Severio Rocker?
That's incredible.
So it's actually a good story.
And then basically the inventor, he saw this happen. It cost him the game. He went home and he spoke to his father, who was a former aeronautical engineer. His dad used to design bombs. So I said, Dad, I just watched Sav Rocker pretty much cost us the game. What was going on with his kicking? You know, the ball seemed to be going off and skewing off to the sides. So his dad said, son, go to the fridge and get me an egg. Go to the cupboard and get me a teaspoon. I'll show you what's going on. So he grabs the egg and he says, well, the egg replicates the shape of a football. You can clearly see that.
Yeah.
And he said the teaspoon, if you turn the teaspoon over to the convex side, so the opposite side to how you would use a teaspoon, you get that convex shape. And then he said, try and balance the egg on the convex shape. Surely enough, it's 2 convex shapes hitting each other and you can't balance it. So he said, what's going on is unless you hit the ball perfectly on the ridge of your foot, on your sweet spot, which normally runs about 1 centimetre by 10 centimetres on the ridge of the top part of your foot, unless you hit it perfectly there, the ball will skew off to the sides. So surely enough, he said, I want you to reverse the teaspoon to the concave shape, so the concave side.
Yep.
He grabs the egg and he places the egg and it naturally cups the radius of the egg. So it's grade 1 physics. You can't disprove this technology. I've heard Mickey plenty of times given a sales pitch using the old the soup bowl and how you grab, you get soup out of the bowl. And
even to the point where basketballers, when they release the ball, it comes out of the concave of their hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually crazy simple.
Well, that's fascinating, and that's obviously a big part of what the
Hence
branding
the
is, right? The
logo,
logo,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So for those that haven't seen it, we'll pop up an image so you can have a look at it. But
So you can have a look. So yeah, in effect, we started off as an R&D company, wasted many of years. Well,
we put it this way, we weren't commercially savvy, Jake. So we thought we'd just flip it to Adidas with
we struggled.
six-figure.
Yeah, we definitely struggled big time from that perspective. But I suppose what we lacked in brains, we had in balls, and we obviously needed a lot of those balls to navigate through this particular space, this such competitive commercial sports retail space. So R&D company initially, and then basically the idea was, hey, let's offload or license our technology to one of the major brands,
Yeah.
So one of a very famous American brand with a swoosh sign, or the German, the 100-year-old German brand. So we presented our technology. Obviously, it wasn't refined back then, but the concept was true.
so at this point, you're not trying to make your own brand. You're
No,
trying to pitch the kind of style to another brand.
Basically,
Wow.
license out the technology and get
Gotcha.
these multi-global companies to use their resource to perfect it and evolve it to make it commercial. But what we soon found out was that they were kind of like, hey, man, we spend tens of millions of dollars within our own innovative departments. Who are these Aussie farmers that tell us how to make a fucking football boot, right?
Yeah,
So,
right. Okay.
fair call, right?
Yeah.
So basically, that, in effect,
I
probably...
think that took up the first 5 years.
Okay.
And to be fair, the Australian government gave us
supported
prop-ups,
us through various R&D grants, etc., over the journey, and obviously private funding. But in effect, that forced us to kind of make our next move or decide what we're going to do. And I vividly remember, Mickey P and myself sitting in Laurent.
We're a bit despondent after
bit
the
flat,
knockback.
bit flat.
A bit broke and
Yeah.
despondent.
Yeah, I
but,
can imagine, right?
And then we just said, you know what, Andy, we'll just start our own brand.
That's
Fuck it, we'll have a
amazing.
go. Let's
That's
just have a
amazing.
crack.
Have a go. And,
And
we go,
as you can imagine, there was resistance with even doing that within the group of guys that were involved with us. It was like, what are you on about? How are we going to do our own brand? We just said, no, we're
well,
going to have a go.
we had some inspired sportsmen, ex-sportsmen in our own right.
Yeah, which luckily enough, obviously on this journey, I think in a lot of ways you just attract what you are, or the energy you put out there. We've been very lucky to, first and foremost, to be funded by some astute stakeholders, philanthropists in a lot of ways, the likes of a Julius Coleman. This guy built a school for underprivileged kids out in Doveton to give them
Wow.
a private school education without paying the money. Andrew Bassett, co-founder of Seek.com.
Yeah, president of St
Amazing
Kilda.
mentors. To be fair, we're going to talk about some mentors a bit later on.
Yeah.
But amazing mentors. And then, as Mickey touched on, two absolute greats. The great Ron Barassi. There's a statue of the guy at the MCG. I mean, Ron understood the concept 20-odd years ago. He totally understood what it was about and put his name to it. And then from a football perspective, global perspective, and that's kind of a story in itself, is the great Kenny Dalglish, Liverpool, voted Liverpool's all-time greatest ever player. There's a stand named after him, the Dalglish stand down at Anfield. So we're bloody buzzing or honoured to have these guys as advocates that
So
saw
these guys
the
were a
leap.
part of the early phase of the journey with support. from-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I mean, you can't do it any other way. I mean, you just need everyone to
Just
chip
baby
in.
steps, Jakey.
Yeah.
Just keep.
And you sit there and you go, how can you not find inspiration from some of these guys? Like,
Yeah.
they're champions in their own right. Sometimes I'd find myself on the phone going, how the fuck am I talking to Kenny Dalglish? And he's having a back and forth conversation about what we're doing and this and that. I'm like, whoa. And
Well, he invited us to Melwood, their training facility,
Yeah.
to actually test the concave boot with his son. Himself at the time could have a kick. And then we went off to the Liverpool youth team and kitted out all the players with a very rough prototype. But he wanted to see for himself how this thing functioned. And at the end of an hour session, after watching the Liverpool youth team. He said there's no way a normal boot can produce what these boys were churning out consistently. You know, I remember Paul Trimboli and myself putting on the session. I think, Andy, you were chasing the ball. But
I was a ball boy back then.
No, we put on all kinds of hats, mate.
I bet you do. At Concave, we wear every
we get the drink bottles. We do everything,
we do the whole lot, mate. That's a beautiful.
That's part of why I'm fascinated by your business, because it is I guess an area in the sporting world that's filled with sharks, and you guys have come in. You got to be a little bit crazy to do what you do to come into this space, and I think the timeline you're talking about, where you're probably thinking of starting a boot from a Concave perspective, would have been over 15 even 20 years ago, right?
Absolutely, correct.
So you guys have been on this journey for a long time.
Look, you find out, Jakey, I think if we're going to draw analogies, say a sportsman who ends up becoming a professional, they've spent the best part of 15 years as a junior working their way up to their peak. We've spoken other technologies, and from idea, concept to commercial reality, it tends to be around that time. So it might sound a lot, but it's the journey. And if you love it, time becomes irrelevant. You just put one step in front of the other, and away you go. And you know that's how the best way to describe it.
It's amazing for me. Was there any point in the early stages where you sort of got that I guess kick of wind to really sort of move forward, and you thought, instead of we're a bit of a starting block here and there's a sinking sort of ship at times because we're going through this journey to try and get bigger? Was there anything that gave you guys a bit of a push to be like, you know what, we're going to be on a really good path here to do something special?
I would say that we've had signposts all along the way, even through the R&D phases. I mean, I've got a double hip replacement and knee replacement. Some think it was my career. It was actually testing, doing a lot of testing to financial people. Yeah. But, you know, when they see it for themselves, you go, oh, yeah, there's a savvy businessman who actually gets the idea. Then you move on. And then obviously the likes of Ron Barassi, seeing the boot, then getting his people in to have a look at it. So just continuously, even through the hard times, and it's always the financial pressure, to be fair, that kind of squeezes you. But I think, Andy, it's fair to say we've had signposts that have kept us in good stead.
When I first got introduced to the brand through Mickey, it was like you kind of mentioned from a brand perspective, but also just players that you just naturally align to, as the ones that are a little bit different, the ones that don't mind the pressure, the ones that like to stand out but are a little bit more unique. And I think that's reflective in the way that you've approached an industry filled with sharks. Where did that sort of, I guess, branding or perspective come from for you guys?
Yeah, I suppose against the grain, basically, in essence, having something on top of your boot that's not conventional is straight off the bat, it's against the grain, as in we're doing the opposite. So everything we do stems from that. Even our brand positioning, I always use the analogy, I suppose, when I present, that if Nike or Adidas were a music genre, they'd be in the pop music category. That ain't us. Like, we're not Nike, we're not Adi. Obviously, we know that. We thoroughly respect them, but we're sort of creating our own paths. We'd be more of a genre of maybe hip-hop before it was so commercial 20 years ago, or indie, sort of under the radar sort of a genre. Kind of, I suppose, demographic or player that appeals to our brand is someone who likes to be their own person, like their own man, someone who ultimately doesn't really follow as such. He's very comfortable within his own skin. So we kind of got two sort of demographics. We've got the guy that likes to be different straight off the bat. There's always one guy in the change room who goes, mate, I need those fluoro boots. I need the colours on it. I need the whole lot. Yeah. Then we've got the other demographic, the guy that he's the ultimate pro. This is a type of guy that likes to take everything to the nth degree, to fine-tune his game. He's the aspiring guy to search for something that's quite different out there that can help benefit his game. I suppose the thinker or captain of a team, someone like that. So we get pretty much those two types of players in general, which is still fantastic coverage for us.
I think, Jakey, you can relate to your professional career. A changing room can actually be, a professional changing room can be an insecure place. You walk in, you're trying to get a game. It's not easy. The boys can be a little bit tough on you. Yeah. To actually walk in with a product like ours, we've noticed that.
In the earlier days, in particular.
When our prototyping, you know, they kind of dismissed you, which was fair enough.
Mind you, Jake, the first prototypes literally had a dish on top of the boot. Like, it was like,
it was exaggerated.
You could have missed, mate. You were striking that ball. So it was very exaggerated.
But people will say there's 3% of people that are early adopters and have time for new stuff, hence why everything evolves.
Yeah.
But we can certainly confirm it's been a challenge.
Yeah.
And the people that we have attracted have definitely been their own men.
Yeah, and they're
And girls.
they're the type of guys that force change ultimately.
Yeah.
The guys that aren't comfortable.
So did you take early feedback from some of the players that were working? Because, I mean, the boot, I've been wearing the boot. For those that know me, they always go, oh, Jake's always wearing Concave. But I've been wearing the boot for probably 4 or 5 years now. And the boot that I wore 4 or 5 years ago, the feeling to the one now is slightly different. But I mean, the one now is like a sock. It's beautiful. So I imagine that didn't happen overnight, right?
No. We did take feedback. Andy's built a team, and probably best let Andy explain the team you put together.
Yeah, I mean,
development
first and foremost, all the essence of the core of the intel we get has stemmed from Mickey P. I mean, we didn't touch on it earlier, and we probably should have. Mickey P was known as a ball player, sitting in the midfield, directing traffic,
gorgeous to watch,
knocking balls right to your foot. So Mickey P is the first ever player, coach back then, player to try the product and validate that it works. So from his word, ultimately, millions of dollars have been raised on this journey, as in from the starting point, the seed, and we all believed in what Mickey had to say. He was very well respected, and the journey started from that point onwards. So we needed to have a truth that we can work from, right?
Gotcha.
That's the essence of it. So that's put to bed. Then it was, okay, how do we navigate and try to create the world's best functioning boot?
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Yeah.
And like all energies, we're all energies ourselves. We go out there, we put it out there. We were lucky enough to cross paths with a gentleman by the name of Volker Steedl. Now, Volker Steedl was the former head of Adidas innovation for 20 years.
Wow.
This guy engineered the Adidas Predator boot, the F50. He was part of the team that engineered the 2010 World Cup ball. Ian Thorpe swimsuit. This guy's a guru in the industry.
How'd you meet him? How?
In Indonesia, the hundreds of trips that we had made to Indonesia, there's a story behind that as well.
That's another podcast.
That's another podcast. That's another podcast.
I think I'll just intervene and say one thing. With the footy boot, we needed to achieve 3 things: comfort, function, and aesthetic. Mm-hmm. We've always had the function, but the other two, we had to put our hand up and had to be self-honest.
Yeah.
We were struggling with a look and a comfort.
Yeah. And then obviously the feedback across the journey, different players trying the product. We'd listen. I mean, these guys, players in particular, they're out the cold face, man. If you're not going to listen to the player, where are you getting intel from, really?
Correct.
Right? Because the other thing is, too, you got to balance out an engineer as well who's all set about engineering and he wants the world's best functioning boot, but then he doesn't consider the look of it, for example. So we gathered intel along the journey, players in particular, listening to our retailers as well. We've got some fantastic retail partners that deal, actually one in particular, ProDirect, the largest online football retailer in the world.
That's massive.
Their staff are dying to give their opinion on, a boot. And these are guys that deal with boots every day.
It's like eBay for boots, right?
Well done.
For those that don't know, right?
They sell millions of boots every day.
Yeah.
So when you ask one of these guys, hey, what are your thoughts on this and that? They're busting at the
I think it's
seams
fair to
help.
say, Jakey, we're coachable.
Yeah.
And I think that in life's journey, I think it's important that you can always be a student and
Take
a teacher.
the feedback, right?
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
There was no ego on your end when you were getting that
ego?
feedback.
No.
And that's
Well,
awesome.
we're a bunch of Aussie blokes.
But that's why when you talk about those 3 things that you tick off, that 100% now the boot does tick those 3 things, right? Like the comfort, the feel, the look, the aesthetic.
Ultimately, it's probably our biggest KPI. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, go.
Our biggest KPI is pro players adopting the product. Yeah. So fair to say now we're moved into the AFL space because, again, it helps with every kicking sport, every kicking code. We're based in Australia, so we want to do well in our origin. The idea was born in Australia, so we want to do well in our own country. 20-odd AFL players, 3-4 years ago we had one. It was Jake Stringer in the early days.
Shout out Jake Stringer for taking a leap forward.
And let me tell you a story about Jake. He wore it all year. The year the Bulldogs won the premiership. He was contracted
2016.
Correct.
One player we only had, and he won the premiership.
That's marketing.
What are the chances?
Let me tell you about Jakey Stringer. On the Wednesday before the Saturday grand final, he comes into our office, sees Andy, and says, "Mate, can you personalise my boots?" And Andy goes, "Of course we can, mate. We'll take it over to the people and we'll do it in an hour." Anyway, while he's looking, he sees a pair of boots that he hadn't seen before in Concave. He goes, I like those ones. And I'm like, Jakey, aren't you going to wear your comfortable slippers that you've been wearing all year?
Yeah, you've worn them in. Right?
Yeah, he goes, no, I'm happy to give these a bill.
No, he's a bit crazy.
He is absolutely crazy. Anyway, on the record, his first 2 kicks were on the full.
In the grand final.
In the grand final.
You just hammered Jakey.
Yeah, I love Jakey.
He's our only ambassador. You can't kill him.
Well, for those that don't
keep him
know,
honest.
putting on a new boot at times, it does take a few sessions to wear in and feel like a glove. So to wear a brand new boot on the biggest game of your career is a bold move.
Hey, and credit to Jakey as well. Obviously, he was strong enough as in he felt, now I'm happy to try something different. He believed in what we had. Over the journey as well, he's managed to give us some intel of what his thoughts were about the product. And again, that's helped with the evolution of refining the product. But that was, 4 years ago when he first got involved. We then managed to get maybe a couple more players to today. 4 years later, we're sitting on 20 players, the likes of Dylan Shield. He's the pros pro I was talking about before.
Yep.
This guy takes his training to the next level. He's always searching for things to get better. Meditation, anything that can help him get better. He's the ultimate pros pro. And for us, that's a great compliment that he would consider our brand to get into Concave. He was, recently he was a pin-up boy for one of the other brands. He was an actual pin-up boy.
Yeah.
And to come across, so obviously he believes in our product. There's Jeremy Finlayson, who's recently come on board. GWS is about to debut in our product coming up shortly. He's been injured of late. Devon Smith, Hugh Greenwood, Jacob Townsend, there's a whole host of players. And not only AFL, we're now finding some great interest in the sport of NRL, which is fantastic. Recently, Ben Hunt, St. George Illawarra captain, has joined has joined the revolution, mate.
That is massive.
Again,
he's a superstar in the NRL world, Ben Hunt.
Again, another signpost, Jakey, along the way. When pro players in real time are wearing our product, we love it.
Yeah.
Great signpost.
That must give you great satisfaction when those little milestones of now we're almost managing a group of players from creating a product to
correct.
We've got an organisation of.
How do you want to go satisfaction?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you actually had this? Someone mentioned something in the office today. There's 20 odd players on the weekend that they're going to be playing. If you want to see what our days are like on the weekend, it's Mickey P texting back and forths, all the partners texting. Did you see that goal? Did you see what he did? There's great. I mean, from a personal perspective, Mickey P probably the same way. Great satisfaction to go, fuck, man, look, these guys are rocking our boots. They've just scored a goal in our product. There was no logo. There was no nothing. No one ever believed in what we were doing as such. Obviously some people did along the journey, but there was a lot of knockbacks, etc. And to see that end product is just amazing, man. Like the buzz, I mean, you can't beat it. Not into drugs. I can only imagine what it feels like. But the euphoria we personally get from watching our product in play is amazing, and I think it's very special. I don't know. We follow our boys now. It's like, what team do you follow?
And I think now, Jakey, it's important that as a company and a business that we represent ourselves ethically, and we can build our own family and our own club with our product.
Yeah.
And that
Have
can be
that
special.
family feel, right?
Yeah, and we want to do business the right way. We want to do everything the right way. And I think that's the experience of being in teams, maybe Andy and myself, our whole life.
And also Neo Andrew Neofito again, who's not here today. He's been in the sports management world, in the early days with Ricky Nixon. He helped set that up, and he represents Shane Warne. And I mean, there's some great intel in general in the Concave office that derives around ultimately trying to get the best out of our players, etc. So we understand the challenges a lot of players have. I've been lucky enough to live with a player as such, Michael Theoklitos, who's a goalkeeper. And there was a lot of things along the journey that helped us and ultimately probably groomed us in a lot of ways to be doing what we're doing.
Because you mentioned there before, Andy, of like the brand originating in Australia. And obviously you started predominantly from the round ball world. That's where a lot of your sort of personnel that you're working with and feedback came from. But you've mentioned now expanding into other areas, other sports, AFL, NRL, but not just from an Australian standpoint. I mean, you guys, you were living in the UK. You've spent time, a number of hours and months in Asia to expand the brand and the football boot. What's that journey been? And I guess how have you strategized to make that happen?
Oh, wow. Obviously it's important that our product, we we basically reach all parts of the world. I mean, that's the end game. We want our brand to be
A global
known
brand.
as a truly global brand. So the round ball code is amazingly significant and large in numbers. 243 million registered players according to FIFA. And FIFA envisaged that 1 billion people participate in the sport. So I suppose...
And 200 odd countries play football.
So that's ultimately, that's a carrot.
The market's
we want
there.
to be a
It's a
part
huge
of it,
market,
and it's a
right?
big enough market. So annually 100 million pairs of boots are sold globally. So that's the marketplace we're playing against. It's a lot.
Yeah.
We only need a few percent, Mickey.
Yeah, I was going to say,
what
what do you take?
I'll be helicoptering in next
So,
time.
So
The traffic was terrible today,
I
mate.
thought you were today because you were late. So
Meanwhile,
just yet, mate.
we're scrounging for $2 to put in the meter to bloody we don't get a fine.
yeah.
So basically, having said that, obviously you need retailers that can help you go to market and that have enough bandwidth to get it out there. One retailer in particular that we're proud of being involved with is a retailer, and I touched on it before, in Pro Direct Soccer. So Pro Direct Soccer are the largest online football retailer in the world. And they're based out of a little place in England called Devon. So Devon. Adrian Lake, the owner, and his executive staff basically bought into the Concave story because, in essence, they've got a similar story. They started off as a catalogue book that would supply... they started off as a small retail store that would supply boots for pro players, and then they changed their model to a sort of catalogue book. And then, so they'd send out catalogues to all the pros. Hey, have a look at the Copa Mundial, have a look at the Nike.
Yeah.
They were finding that a lot of the pro players were like, oh, wow, I can get access to this stock. They then moved their model to the online space. So this was online before.
That's a game changer when that happened.
This was like, in all honesty, it's probably about 15, 20 years ago for them as well. So it
Okay.
was early stages, so early adopter.
Yep.
So Adrian Lake, found parallels with us, sees a couple of bunch of Aussie blokes coming down here with their boots in their bag, goes, look, I don't think the product's that good, but I love your spirit. I love what you're trying to do. Let's start something. And again, when you said, how do you gain intel to get better? These are the types of guys that help us get better. But within that, within Pro Direct, you're going into a machine, you're going into a company that, first and foremost, they're the best at what they do. So these guys are in the zone. Now, how does a little brand like Concave get attention in this place that basically is run by Nike and Adidas? Like, they're their biggest customers. Let's be honest. They're their biggest customers. So in a sense, it was just difficult just to even get in there and keep their attention span up. But one of the biggest ways we navigated through the challenges that presented were give everyone some mind share, man. What's your thoughts? Like, rather than a brand that goes in there, Nike man with the collars up.
Yeah,
but
we
I'm
know
the
what's
man.
best. Yeah,
Hey man, how do we get better? Can you please help us? Go in there with humility. Go in there being honest.
And give them a bit of ownership.
That's
Their
a great.
staff.
That's a great lesson for anything in business, right?
Oh,
or in anything in life.
It
Having
is,
that-
Jakey, 100%.
Yeah.
Give people ownership, give them of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
give them their space, and Andy's probably been a master at it.
Yeah.
And hence they've taken ownership and they feel part of our brand.
Yeah.
And we're honoured. And
We've been very lucky.
some of the intel we've had is
just in
awesome.
general.
I've actually captured that with you two a lot because even when I wore the boot, and I probably started wearing them when I stopped playing professional football, which was like 2016, I think, Mickey, when we were at Richmond.
Yep.
And I remember Mickey even asking me like, "How is it?" And I'm like, "Mate, why are you wearing what I think? I'm playing in the low." But like the passion and the genuine care of like, is it good? What do you think? And it's the same. And I actually think that's a big reason of why you guys are where today, which we'll tap into, and you've already tapped into, Andy, of like the foundation of clientele you have and more for where the vision of the brand's going. But that openness of almost like a vulnerability with your product of, we know we're not the best, but we envision that we are going to be one day. What can you give us to get that? I think it's a great tool for anything, anyone in business, because I did promote today's episode as like a different angle on the sporting world and a business angle. And this is some of the way to think about it, which is really interesting.
Yeah, we've been very lucky. You know what? When you get down in the dumps with doing what we're doing, you keep getting punched up, etc. What you find yourself doing is you get energy from the next guy that you show the product to, or they give you something they'll say something that's positive about the product, and it's just that little bit that you go, oh yeah, fuck yeah, that's why I'm doing this again. This is why we've got to keep doing what we're doing. I mean,
to the point that thanks for having us, Jakey, because we're happy to talk about.
but it actually podcast we've ever done. I've never done.
There you go. It's breaking all records here.
Fantastic.
No, anyone that's willing to listen, Mickey, what do you say? Have boots, we'll travel.
We'll travel. Yeah.
That's good.
Hey, come on, guys. The cliches are out now, but 90% of life is turning up.
Yeah.
But you got to love what you do, and there's that's what we have done, and the sincere belief that we're offering a real technology. Mightn't be for everybody, but it can compete in the marketplace with all the other big brands, and we feel comfortable in that space, and we'll continue to drive it and gain mind share, market share.
Absolutely.
Have you guys ever in that 20-year journey, because it obviously is, I'm sure it's still a roller coaster putting flames out and running a business, and I'd love to get a bit more understanding of the day-to-day operation, but I mean, have you guys across that period ever sort of down tools and thought, this might not be for us. We're at a point here where I don't know how we're going to keep operating. Is that still ongoing?
A couple of days I couldn't get out of bed. I don't know how we're going to pay the bills, but you know what? You can't take things too serious either.
Yeah.
Your energy and your frequency has to be up, and if it is, you'll actually find someone. You'll navigate a way. Nothing is ever that serious that you can't find a way out. And I genuinely believe that. Yeah. And we're probably testimony to that, because I think we have hung on the cliff a few times. Oh, yeah. You just, that's life. But I can relate that to sport, because
it's
the
like
deeper
anything.
you go into a tournament, the deeper you go to a final, there's still no guarantees.
Yeah.
So you got to get it on the line.
Yeah, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Well, you got you got to treat the two evils, winning and losing.
Yeah.
You got to treat them the same.
Yeah.
And if you do, eventually your number will come up, because you've turned up enough times.
Yeah, that's right.
Your number will come up.
I think you've used the analogy, if you go all in poker every time, you're going to at least win one of those all-ins.
No. The best analogy is even a broken clock is right twice a day.
There you go.
That is one of the all-time. Mickey P's on. He's turned up late and he's brought some atmosphere finally. Thank you, Mickey, for turning up. Jeez. But so some of those areas as well, from like when we're talking about navigating strategy through the good times and the bad times, like, I mean, is that coming from you two? Are you guys working with other people? Do you have business mentors in this space as well? Because it's a unique field to get really expertise on, right?
It's a combination of both, because what was a business model 10, 15 years ago, say that Julius Coleman, when he was in business, Andy Bassett with their unique business, is slightly different to ours. We've had trial and error that everybody as a group thought, Andy goes over to England, we'll kick it, and we didn't. And we've had to refine it and say, right, we might have to go to a licensing model. Yeah. So we kind of take a slightly different approach.
Yeah, and we're always adapting. I mean, every business does. I mean, just look at what COVID's done to businesses in general over the last year and a half. Like, if you don't adapt, you're done. Like, you're gone. For us, it's just staying afloat, doing what we're doing, and
so little tweaks here and there, Jakey. Yeah. There's no
just
set
move
formula.
But
I mean, I can certainly say in the last few months, probably a few months, 6 months, we've signed a few licensing deals, which seem to be working quite well. Okay. And what that means is the people have seen the product, they're energized, they know their markets. So Indonesia, Japan, I think Mexico's about to come on, and we kind of pity back off them, and they're happy to put their energy and resources.
Yeah,
and
so we go into new territories which ultimately have great resource that can run Concave within their territories. I think you'll probably find in the first stages of Nike coming to Australia, they actually licensed the brand into Australia.
Wow.
And then after 10 odd years,
I think they were piggybacking on ASICs at the time.
Right. So you kind of give some ownership to resourcing a business in a country for them to do more reach, because you don't have a way to scale.
And that's the other thing.
And our exposure's minimal.
Yeah.
So then they get the pro players.
And
they get a bigger piece of it. We get our guaranteed royalties and upfront licensing fees.
Not only that, you get expertise from the locals. You go into a Chinese market, you don't know how to navigate, the ins and outs. You don't know culturally some of the differences they might have, or you don't know their buying patterns, for example, their consumer habits.
Right.
So people that live there predominantly know their territory
They've
better
got
than
that
anyone
right.
else. So yeah, but we're proud to, obviously, and Mickey touched on it. One group in particular. I mean, the AFL's major sponsor, Toyota. The Toyota Tusho Group licensed Concave into Japan. Now, to get into the Japanese market, it had taken us 3 years. So they did their due diligence process was 3 years before we got into the Japan market. And now they're going on to close to 10 stores. So
Wow.
they only started end of 2020.
And they're already in.
And they're going into 10 odd stores.
We're moving into April 2021.
So we're going to, but that was a great milestone for us as a brand to get into a market that's so astute. The Japanese are very anal for the right reasons. They're very thorough. They're very, so when you do get in, you earned that. They didn't just gift it to you. And, a due diligence process of 3 years, it's a long time just for a licensing agreement. So that's one
When they've put
area.
together their apparel kit, the materials are top shelf, equal to Nike, Addy, without a doubt.
They've got their own sort of, obviously it's under the guidance of Concave, the mothership, approvals and stuff and that, but they do things really well. And I suppose that's the biggest thing for us, to do something well and to do it justice.
I've got to say, I was quite excited about our Indonesian partners because they've set up concept stores, Jakey. So our whole store, like Chatty Shopping Centre, the equivalent, has got a Concave concept store in there. Wow. With all apparels.
So there's three concept stores in Indonesia.
Yeah, where they've actually got kicking areas. I mean, it's really exciting.
I mean, last year, 2020, was a crazy year for everyone in any walk of life. But as a business and a business standpoint of where Concave was at, I mean, how did you guys navigate yourself through the pandemic?
Probably like most people, minute to minute, second to second. But ironically, there were pros and cons with the situation. Pros being that big brands were handicapped and that we almost brought them down into the swamp with us. But what we found was that their stuff wasn't getting anywhere and choosing Concave was an option. And Andy will tell you, we had plenty of requests from agents to give Concave a try.
Yeah, let's be honest. Most businesses are going to be refining their marketing spends. They're going to be looking to cut the dollars. So a lot of players that were previously probably sponsored by major brands, other brands, won't have that luxury anymore. And again, we're going to be a consideration. But equal to that, our product's more than ready. And it's,
And ironically, our sales went up in certain places, particularly Pro Direct. And we don't quite know how or why, but every time we check the figures, we go, geez, that's gone up. And I mean, it was an anomaly that we still don't understand.
Yeah, it was challenging. I mean, it was challenging different parts, in particular Victoria. We were hurt the most, as in shutdown. So the little Johnny couldn't go to the park. If he's not going to the park, his mum and dad aren't thinking about buying football boots because he's not allowed to go to the park. Yeah. But in other territories, other nations, in particular, at that time, England was quite loose about the COVID protocol. Yeah. They didn't have lockdown. So, their outlet was, let's go to the park, mate, to forget about this COVID.
Football, right? Yeah.
So numbers in particular, Europe, UK, had gone up. Victoria, not really. And then again, with the resurgence of kids being able to play football again it spikes. Sales spike again. There's an enthusiasm. You only got to watch the AFL and see the passion and the roar from the supporters now, because we were so suppressed for a year of no sport to get out and go watch your team and barrack for your team. Yeah. You can feel this energy just through the TV. So I mean that's.
I think one thing you can say, no matter what demographic you fit into, I think a parent will always buy their kid a pair of soccer boots,
or
football boots
at some point.
Other things 100%. might go amiss. The technology stuff and the Game Boy, but I think a pair of boots is always kind of on the radar.
Yeah, at some point, right? Yeah. So for you guys, I mean, I guess the bit of around actually one thing I wanted to touch on was the marketing aspect of your business. I actually find a lot of the stuff you guys do really cool and really creative. And as I said, the mantra of going against the grain and being quite unique, I think is actually infiltrated into your marketing. I know you're broadening out into also now some apparel and more clothing stuff as well to complement the boot range. But I mean, how do you, obviously marketing in your position is a big part of your business, sales of the boot product as well as allocating resources and personnel to wear the product from a professional standpoint. How have you guys focused energy into that space to grow it, really.
Yeah, again, over the years, we've managed to attract probably like-minded people as such. So, that energy thing we've mentioned quite a few times. It's real. There's people. I mean,
it's electric in here at the moment.
Mate, you're living proof of one of those energies crossing paths of the brand. You
Definitely.
resonated with something to do with the brand. So, luckily enough, over the period of time, we've managed to cross paths with some talented people, artists. We've collaborated with artists, street mural artists. We've collaborated with a guy called From Virginia Ben. This guy does personalised artistry on shoes for Beyonce and all these music artists, etc. But we've attracted the likes of these people, and they've contributed to obviously our branding. Work with a fantastic artist. Designer out of the UK who's really got his hand on the pulse. And what do artists go by? They go by energy. So they go by how we talk to them. They go by the brief, and then they just get on with it. But again, probably one of our biggest strengths is what Mickey P mentioned before, is giving them ownership. Well, we already believe in you, man. We know you're a talented artist. Go show us. Go do what you do.
Wow. So you give some the creative freedom to
Absolutely.
personnel. Yeah.
One point, Jakey, is when the players come in to get their kit, the pro players, Andy says, listen, man, if you see something you like, a hoodie or a design that you might like, feel free. There's never a bad idea when you walk in a Concave. We're not saying we're not going to bring it to life, but we love to hear it. And I think it's a great one that could be coming up in the next couple of months is the Dreamtime. A player down at Gold Coast, Jay Farah, and Andy Kickett, his uncle, they've collaborated in doing the very first commercial Aboriginal artist on a boot.
Like Aboriginal art influence on a boot.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it's come up. I mean, it's still work in progress, but the boys are
Watch
buzzing.
Watch
this space.
Mate, that's exciting. We'll keep an eye out. When's that game? In 3 weeks? 2 weeks?
Early June.
Oh, so it's a few months away.
Yeah,
Oh,
a couple
okay.
of months ago.
Oh, mate,
but that mindshare piece
Yeah.
everyone's got mindshare.
Everyone's got
the
at
mindshare.
Concave. Everyone's welcome, mate.
Geez, that would be a bit of a thrill as a player. I've already got some creative freedom on the brand.
Look, we say, right, the number one thing they've got to do is get a kick, and their football is their most important thing on the pitch. At the same time, it can be a little bit...
an outlet?
It's an outlet for players because it's a little bit regimented being a pro player at times.
Definitely.
But we understand all players are different. Andy's like, mate, you want to come in, have some lunch, hang out, do something? Great, you're welcome. If not, we understand it. So as little or as much as you like.
Yeah.
We kind of leave the door open. And consequently, some players enjoy
Love
it. They come in
They
and,
love it.
shoot the breeze and have a laugh and also inspire some of the kit. And now we've brought to life a boot that we're going to be quite proud of.
Yeah.
Where for you guys, because you guys have a lot of strategy, and I think what's really powerful with you guys is very clear of what you want to achieve, which obviously helps you get to that goal. But the end goal of Concave, I mean,
To be a household brand name globally.
Where's that going?
That was the end game. No, a combo actually, definitely that. We wanted to add we wanted to serve people, and it happens to be football. And we want to make a difference, even if it's to a young girl who struggles to get a kick, puts on a pair of boots, and actually kicks it slightly better, or finds that sweet spot,
Or juggles the ball.
20 having
times
trouble.
more,
Because the truth is, not everybody is a good kicker of the soccer ball. We were very aware of that it's for everybody, and if it can help your game, albeit minimal and slightly, it doesn't get you a kick. It's not a remote control, the Concave, but it's certainly a bit. I mean, we've mentioned the analogies of the golf club and the tennis racket. Those areas, sweet spots, got bigger, which improved everybody's game, professionals right through to weekend warriors. So that was our intention. With that comes being a global household name.
That's awesome. Adidas, Nike, Concave. It's pretty cool. But one thing with the mentality you guys have as well as you transition to the good and bad of business, do you guys have any advice for people in not necessarily trying to start apparel brands to go after the Adidas and Nikes, but starting out from a business standpoint in sport who are finding it tough? I mean, what's sort of your advice you can give them, as I'm sure you've been through a lot of times yourself?
Gee. Hang in there.
Buckle up. Believe. Really dig deep. Believe in what you're doing.
I don't think there's a magic wand. There's not a magic formula. You know what? Sometimes you do have to put up the white flag in life. We just felt that we decided that we do have a unique technology that if we can perfect, we're going to go for it. And we're still going for it. And there's still no guarantees.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, this is definitely an old cliche. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Win or lose. Just have a bit of fun with everything. And if that's what you've chosen to do, then give it everything. And if you can't give it everything, then you can put up the white flag.
I think that's something great you said before. 90% of life is turning up, showing up. And that's definitely the heat of battle here. And you two guys, you know, as I want to sort of round out the episode, you two guys are people that I actually look up to. Andy, from a business standpoint, and like honestly, man, what you're doing is really unbelievable. And I think the market share you guys are going to reach in this country is only going to grow. And Mickey, you're actually the reason why I played football again. I don't know if I've told you this, but I've told a lot of people. I retired. I was dead and gone with football. I didn't want to play anymore. Came out of the year of the pros, played in the NPL, the VFL of soccer in Victoria, and just hated it. And then Mickey got on the phone to me. He was having a beer at his next door neighbours. He was actually my dad's best mate.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad's walked in and gone.
He was there at your birth.
Yeah.
Your dad walked out of the room.
It's true story. Shout out Squizzy, who'll like this. Squizzy, my dad's best friend, was actually entered the room when my mum was in labour and she was crowning having me as a kid and beat my dad in there. And so he was the first one in, and then he kind of gone, Dad, no. But anyway, no, my dad called me that day and goes, I've got someone I want you to speak to. I'm like, who? He's like, I just had a beer at Squizzy's and met a Socceroo legend. I'm like, what, Squizzy hanging around? Squizzy's not hanging around with Socceroo legends anyway. And anyway, I spoke to Mickey P, and Mickey P said, mate, I'm coaching down at one of these clubs. I'm a part of the coaching team. It's nothing serious, but just come down and just have a kick. Like, no strings attached. Forget money. Forget, like, anything else. Just come and enjoy the game. And ever since then, I've connected back with football. So I do owe you a lot. And that's one of the reasons why it's the brand sentimental to me as well. So
Fantastic.
Thanks a lot, Jay. And thanks, obviously, for having us, mate. We love it.
Mate, a pleasure. Guys, get into the Concave scores. Check out the boots.
Concave.com.
Check out, concave.com. Check out the gear. There's a lot of new range coming, and it's just going to keep growing, mate. It's an awesome time to be alive in this
Our
world.
latest campaign, Play Rogue.
Play Rogue. There you go.
Let's play it road, boys.
There you go. Thanks, fellas.
Jake.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.